The wind cut across the Wyoming plains like a blade, sharp enough to make a man brace even before the storm hit. Cole Bennett felt it slice against his face as he stepped off the porch of his family ranch, the same land his grandfather had claimed more than a century ago. Dark clouds rolled low over the mountains, carrying the promise of another brutal winter storm. Cole, at 42, carried the tired strength of a man who had worked the land his whole life. His hands were rough, his hat worn from years under the sun, and his heart heavy with the fear of losing the ranch his family had built with their bare hands. He walked toward the barn with quiet worry pressing on his chest. Cattle prices were falling, the drought had clawed the life out of the pastures, and the bank had made it clear that time was running out. Cole tried to push those thoughts aside as he crossed the frozen ground, boots crunching with every step. He knew his land better than he knew anything else in the world, so when he heard a strange sound in the distance, a sound that didn't belong to his ranch, he froze. It was a horse's whinny, but not a normal one. This cry was filled with pain, desperate enough to make Cole's stomach twist. He lifted his head, listening again. The wind shifted, carrying the cry a second time, faint but unmistakable. It came from beyond the north pasture, near the open wilderness. Without another thought, Cole broke into a run. He climbed a small rise and stopped dead in his tracks. A horse lay collapsed in the snow near the property line. A magnificent bay, its brown coat still shining even beneath the gray stormlight. But the animal was in terrible shape. Cole moved toward it slowly, his voice low and gentle as he approached. The horse lifted its head, eyes full of pain but also something else. Something sharp, something that felt like it had purpose. Cole knelt beside him and ran his hands along the horse's body. His jaw tightened as he found the wounds. Bullet wounds. Not clean shots from a hunter, but small, cruel shots meant only to cause suffering. Someone had wanted this horse to crawl, not die. Cole felt a flash of anger burn through him. "Easy, boy," Cole whispered. "We're gonna fix you up." The horse didn't fight. It didn't panic. It simply watched him, as if it had been waiting for him. Cole hurried back to the house, hitched up his trailer, and returned to load the injured animal. Even weak, the bay cooperated like he understood Cole wasn't there to harm him. Back at the ranch, Cole cleaned the wounds, treated the infection, and settled him into the warmest stall he had. "You need a name," Cole said softly as he stroked the horse's neck. "How about Maverick?" The horse lifted his ears at the name, calm and alert, and Cole felt something settle deep inside his chest, a connection he couldn't explain. Over the next week, Maverick healed faster than any horse Cole had ever worked with. The strength in him was something rare, something powerful. But Maverick wasn't acting normal. Every day he stood at the north-facing window, staring toward the wilderness like he was listening for something only he could hear. When Cole led him into the paddock, Maverick went straight to the north fence, pacing back and forth, restless and focused. "What's out there, boy?" Cole asked more than once, but Maverick never looked away from the distant hills. By the second week, the behavior grew stronger. Maverick would barely eat, barely rest. He wanted out. He wanted north. Something was calling him. Then one morning, Cole entered the barn and stopped cold. Maverick's stall door was open. Not broken, not kicked apart, just open. Maverick stood calmly outside by the gate leading to the wilderness, his head turned toward Cole as if waiting. "You want me to follow you?" Cole said quietly. Maverick took 2 steps toward the wilderness trail, then looked back again. The message was clear. Cole stood there for a long moment. He had chores to do, debts to face, a ranch on the edge of collapse. He didn't have time for mysteries. But something deeper inside him knew this wasn't a simple wandering horse. Maverick had been shot. He had survived. He had come straight to Cole's ranch, and now he wanted to lead Cole somewhere. "All right, boy," Cole finally said. "You win. Let's see what you're trying to show me." An hour later, Cole rode out on his own horse, Buck, while Maverick led the way with a confidence that made no sense. They climbed into the hills as the air grew colder, the storm clouds gathering faster than Cole liked. Maverick didn't slow, didn't hesitate. He knew this path, even where no trail was visible. After 3 hours, they reached a ridge. Cole stopped and stared down into a small valley hidden by thick pine trees. Smoke curled from a chimney. A cabin stood alone in the deep wilderness, far from any road. Cole felt a chill crawl up his spine. "What in the world is this place?" he whispered. Maverick stopped 50 yards from the cabin. The horse trembled, not from cold, but from something heavier. Cole dismounted and walked forward. The cabin looked quiet, but wrong. Too quiet. Too controlled. Then Cole saw it. Heavy chains wrapped around the front door, a padlock clamped tight. Someone wasn't keeping people out. Someone was keeping someone in. Cole's breath hardened in his chest, and for the first time since this journey began, he felt real fear twist in his gut. Cole moved toward the cabin with slow, careful steps, his hand resting on the rifle slung across his back. The air seemed to thicken with silence. Even the wind that had chased them up the mountain felt muted here, as if the valley itself was holding its breath. Maverick stood rooted in place, muscles tense, ears forward, watching Cole like every second mattered. When Cole reached the door, he saw the chains up close. Heavy, rusted in places, wrapped again and again around iron handles that didn't match the old wood of the cabin. Whoever had locked this door had meant for it to stay locked. Cole knelt and checked the padlock, old but solid. He felt a cold anger rising in him. This wasn't a hunting cabin. This was a cage. Cole moved around the building with the caution of a man who had spent years in the wilderness, and a few more in the military. Every window was barred on the outside. Thick, welded iron. No footprints except his own. No tracks except the faint tire marks of an ATV leading to the trees. Someone had been here recently. Returning to the door, Cole pulled out the multi-tool he always carried. He worked the lock slowly, listening for sounds inside. Nothing moved. Nothing breathed loudly enough to hear. After several tense minutes, the padlock clicked open. Cole unwound the chains and let them fall to the frozen ground with a dull thud. He pushed the door open and stepped inside. The cabin swallowed him in dim light. A small fire burned in the stone fireplace, throwing weak shadows across a table piled with papers, old books, and what looked like maps. The air smelled of smoke and something else. Fear, the kind that hangs in a room long after the person who felt it stopped crying. "Hello?" Cole called in a low voice. "Is anyone here? I'm here to help." For a moment, silence pressed against him. Then came the sound, a dry, weak cough from a back room. Cole felt his heart jump. He moved quickly, pushing open a door to a small bedroom. On a narrow bed lay an elderly woman, so thin she looked almost swallowed by the blankets. Her hair was tangled, her skin pale, but her eyes were sharp with desperate hope. "Please," she whispered, "help me." Cole rushed to her side. "Ma'am, I'm Cole Bennett. Who did this to you?" "Craig," she breathed. "Craig Dalton. My nephew." She looked at him with fear and shame, as if apologizing for needing help. "He wants my land," she whispered. "He locked me here until I signed it away. Said no one would ever find me. But Maverick, did you see him? He's my horse. He must have escaped." Cole felt the world shift beneath him. Maverick had led him here on purpose. A horse had crossed miles of wilderness, bleeding and half frozen, to find the one man who could help. "He's alive," Cole said gently. "He led me straight to you." Tears filled the woman's eyes. "Maverick always knew the Bennett Ranch. I used to ride past it years ago." "I never thought he would remember." Cole helped her sip water from a metal cup beside the bed. She was dehydrated, weak, but alive. "You're safe now," Cole promised. "I'll get you out. How long have you been here?" 3 weeks, she whispered. "Craig only brings food when he wants to scare me more. He says once I sign the papers I can leave, but I know I won't. He stands to make millions if he sells the land to a mining company." Cole clenched his jaw. He had seen greed before, but never like this. Never chained to a frail woman in a cabin prison. "Why me?" Cole asked. "Why would Maverick bring me?" The woman looked at him a long moment. "What did you say your name was?" Cole Bennett. Her breath caught. Her hand reached for his arm with surprising strength. "Bennett," she whispered. "Your grandfather? William Bennett?" Cole felt the world tilt. "Yes, you knew him?" Her eyes filled with tears. "He saved my life when I was 19. In a blizzard, She took a trembling breath. "We were going to be married." Cole stared at her, stunned. He had never heard any of this. Before he could speak again, a sound outside froze both of them. The deep rumble of an engine. Cole moved to the window and peered out through the curtain. An ATV rolled into the clearing. A man climbed off, rifle slung over his shoulder. "That's Craig," the woman whispered. "He comes to check on me. You have to hide." Cole didn't hide. Not this time. "Stay low," he told her. "No matter what happens." He positioned himself beside the front door, rifle steady. The ATV engine cut off. Footsteps crunched outside. The door handle rattled. A confused curse followed. Craig had discovered the missing chains. Then the door flew open. Craig Dalton stepped inside, rifle raised, expecting an empty cabin. Instead, he found Cole, his face twisted with shock and rage. "Who the hell are you?" "The man who's ending this," Cole said calmly. "Put the gun down." Craig didn't. Instead, he lifted it higher. Cole saw the decision form in Craig's eyes, a greedy, frightened man choosing violence over consequences. Craig fired first. The shot split the cabin air. Cole dove, rolled, came up ready, and squeezed the trigger once. Craig screamed as the bullet tore into his shoulder, sending his rifle spinning across the floor. Cole was on him in seconds, boot pushing the rifle out of reach. "It's over," Cole said, breathing hard. "You're done." The woman in the back room sobbed with relief, but Cole knew this was far from finished. Because the woman had revealed only part of the truth. And what she would tell him next would change everything he believed about his family. The cabin felt different once Craig was tied and disarmed. The cold fear hanging in the air began to lift, replaced by something steadier, something hopeful. Cole checked on the elderly woman again. Her breathing had steadied, her eyes clearer now that danger had passed. "Ellen," she said when he asked her name again. "Ellen Cartwright." Cole knelt beside her. "Help is coming. I sent a signal out." "But you said there was more you needed to tell me." Ellen nodded slowly, her thin hands twisting the blanket. "It's about your grandfather, about William Bennett." Cole sat back on his heels, unsure what to expect. His grandfather had always been a quiet man, strong but private. Cole had grown up working beside him, but never hearing much about his past. Ellen met his gaze. "When he saved my family in that blizzard, he became the anchor of my world. We were together for only a few days, but the bond, it was real." She paused, gathering herself. "After the storm, he told me he wanted to court me. My father refused. We were moving to California, and he wanted a new start. I begged him to let William come later, but he wouldn't hear it." Cole listened without speaking, the weight of her words settling deep inside him. "I waited for him," Ellen whispered. "I prayed he would come for me." And he did, twice. He traveled all the way to California trying to find my family. But my father moved us again before William arrived. He never stood a chance. A tightness pulled at Cole's chest. "He wrote to me," Ellen continued. "Dozens of letters over the years. I kept every one. In those letters he told me about his dreams. He wanted a ranch that rescued horses, not just raised cattle. He wanted the land to mean something more." Cole's throat tightened. He had never heard this dream, never seen any hint of it in the ranch he grew up on. "When my grandfather died," she said softly, "I found a letter he'd written to me decades earlier. He said if life ever brought us together again, he wanted me to have part of his ranch. He said he owed me a life he was never allowed to give." Cole blinked hard. He felt the truth before she finished speaking. "He changed his will," Ellen said. "He left part of the Bennett Ranch to me. But no one could find me. So his wishes were never carried out. That land you're fighting to keep, part of it is legally mine." The ground felt unsteady beneath Cole. For years he'd believed he was fighting alone to keep the ranch alive, but all along there had been a piece of it meant for someone else, someone his grandfather had never stopped loving. Before he could respond, the rumble of engines echoed through the valley. Helicopters appeared above the trees, and emergency vehicles forced their way down an old logging road. In minutes, law enforcement surrounded the cabin. Craig Dalton was arrested and taken away screaming threats about lawyers and lost fortunes. Ellen was lifted onto a stretcher, Maverick walking beside her like a loyal guardian. Cole rode Buck behind them, still dazed by what he'd learned. At the hospital, Ellen stabilized quickly. The sheriff's department launched an investigation into Craig's land scheme, uncovering documents that tied him to a mining company buying up homesteads through intimidation. But it was Ellen's documents, the saved letters, the old will, that stunned Cole the most. A week later, Cole sat in a lawyer's office in town, staring at yellowed papers written in his grandfather's strong, looping handwriting. Ellen sat beside him, her hand trembling slightly as she rested it on the desk. The lawyer cleared his throat. Legally speaking, Ms. Cartwright owns a significant portion of the Bennett Ranch. But given the years that have passed, the courts will need to review this. Cole turned to Ellen. What do you want? If you want the land back. I don't want your land, she said firmly. I want your grandfather's dream, and I think he meant for us to build it together. Her words settled like sunlight breaking through a storm. Over the following weeks, they formed a plan. Instead of splitting the property, they would join their lands, her mineral-rich acreage and his ranching ground, to create something new, something powerful. The Bennett Cartwright Ranch. A working ranch with a heart big enough to rescue horses like Maverick, animals abandoned, abused, or forgotten. Ellen's land would provide the funding. Cole would manage the operations. On the morning they opened the horse rescue program, Cole stood leaning on the paddock fence. Sunlight spilled over the Wyoming hills. Ellen, stronger now, brushed Maverick's coat as he nudged her shoulder affectionately. You know, she said with a soft smile, William would have loved this. Cole nodded. I think he was waiting for us to finish what he started. Maverick lifted his head, ears pricked, as if he understood. The horse that had crossed the wilderness bleeding and half-frozen now stood proud as the foundation of a new life. One built on loyalty, healing, and the kind of love that time could never erase. Cole watched Ellen stroke Maverick's neck. He felt a quiet peace settle inside him. The ranch was saved. Ellen was safe. And his grandfather's forgotten dream had finally found a home. All because one remarkable horse refused to give up. All because Maverick remembered the way to hope when no one else could.